Hi, everybody. Just before I get started, I want to take a couple of seconds because it's very exciting for me. I think this year is the year that the National Theatre School is the most represented in this room, and there's a couple of wonderful people. So I'd just like to point out that my incredible board chair, Bernard Amiot, is here. My incredible artistic director, Alisa Palmer, is here. We have two other board members, Camilla Holland and Rosemary Thompson from Royal MTC and Banff Centre. We had Simon Brault, who obviously had a 32-year history with the school. Brendan Healy, who's a graduate. We have Kim, who's one of our leadership residents. We have a bunch of other grads in the room. So I just want to say NTS represent. It's awesome to be with you. I want to talk to you about what we're up to, and I'm going to try to go very, very quickly because there's a lot to talk about from the past 18 months of what we've been up to at the National Theatre School. And I think I'd like to put a caveat, and I don't remember if this session is being webcast or not, but it is? Okay. Well, keep this to yourselves. I'm going to be a little bit candid about what has been happening at the National Theatre School and where we're going and why, and I'm going to reveal some things that normally, in a room that might include donors and friends, that I wouldn't normally disclose, but I think it's an important part of the narrative. So I think most of you know what National Theatre School is. I'm going to go very quickly. We have 9 programs in French and English that train for all the different crafts of theatre: acting, directing, playwriting, production, and design. But what I'm coming to you today with is a sort of description of the action plan that we've been working on for the past 18 months or so. First, I'll just start with our kind of declaration here, and I think it aligns with everybody together, but I think this was something that we always assumed was true inside of the institution, but we wanted to declare it proudly. This image and these words appear right when you walk through the front door of the school now, and it declares that for us, theatre is obviously the craft of theatre, but it's also a way of creating community and encouraging empathy. So NTS in 2014, that's when I started, and it really was a legacy institution with many, many strengths. We were financially stable. We just completed our most successful fundraising campaign in the history of the school. We had a well-funded pension plan. We had a history of government support, strong endowment. We were building on our 50th anniversary, which had given a lot of visibility and focus to the school and its history. We had room to grow. We owned 2 buildings with 110,000 square feet of space and only 160 students. And we have reputational capital to burn. We're the National Theatre School of Canada, so people knew what that meant, and it was still looked upon fondly in the sector. But obviously, there are challenges on the horizon. I love that picture for challenges on the horizon. But these are things we've been talking about today, so I won't even delve into them. But the societal upheaval that we're all living, the demographic shifts, the shift in government support, and the rising costs. And one that I'd really like to put a focus on is the notion of competition. For us, this was particularly acute. In 1960, when the school was founded, there were 3 schools that put out about 60 graduates into the world. Today, in theatre training, there are 55 theatre programs in Canada with about 1,200 graduates. And so the role of the school and what it actually meant to be a theatre school has changed considerably since then. This is where we get candid. The warning signs. So, number 1, moolah, obviously, all the time. But frankly, training is not a priority for this government, and that's okay. We've got to make our case better. But what it means is that essentially from a point of view of government support, we have a 20% funding gap between 2010 and today. We haven't received any increase in funding since 2009, to be precise. We also had the transition to new leadership, which is both an opportunity and can be traumatic for an organization. And there's always that post-anniversary dip as well. You celebrate, and then all of a sudden you're kind of off the radar. And then, frankly, the school had gotten to be very expensive to administer. Our price per user is about $55,000 a year. So we spend $55,000 per year per student to train them. I think it shows the results are incredible, but as a model where our occasions for more revenue were declining, there were issues that we had to deal with. And we also had a major renovation project on the horizon, probably for our facility around $15 to $20 million for our performance facility. The second, which I had already touched on, was competition. There was a steep increase in university theater programs, which actually for us, and this is again the kind of numbers I shouldn't be mentioning, led to a very steep decline in the number of applications to the school. We received 40% less applications to the school than we did 10 years ago. And some of our programs are precariously low. And to remind you, we're spending $55,000 a year on the students, but we're letting in over 50% in some of the programs of the applicants, which means that we're really in competition with these 55 programs, and that the competition, unlike us as a small private institution, have significantly larger infrastructure. We're up against hundreds of millions of dollars of endowments, communications and development teams with hundreds of people on them. We're really a small fish in a big pond if we stay in the same lane as everybody else. And finally, we don't offer a recognized degree. You come to NTS because you want to be an actor or a director or a playwright, but you come out with a piece of paper which essentially is worthless. The paper, not the training. The last point, the last warning sign for us was reputation. And, I did say that NTS has political or reputational capital to burn, but we'd had some tricky times. We had a few questionable hires in key positions that had led to a disconnect with the professional milieu. We had a serious issue of perception of the school being an elite institution and therefore not for me, as we saw borne out in the studies. And the organization really operates as two schools within one. Who are we to Quebec? Who are we to English-speaking Canada? Who are we to the north? Who are we to the south? There was a question of reputation and many people stepping in to fill that gap. So, option one, my second favorite image in the slide deck. The status quo, right sizing, increasing private support, reducing costs, selling assets, cutting 2 to 3 programs in the next 5 to 7 years. That was a scenario that we could consider and I think would have lined us up for 10 years of solidity. Option 2, dig deep, reach higher. Really think outside the box. And so in 2015, we proposed an action plan to deploy really the unique advantages of an institution like ours. And I'm going to try to go very quickly through some of the fundamentals of that action plan. The building blocks for us were really to take a stock of the assets that we have. Number one, our independence. Unlike universities, we can change our pedagogy whenever we want, and we're not restricted to a certain formula. We don't have to do a program in a certain sequence. We can look at all of the expertise we have to deploy and reformulate it. We had stability, so even though financial problems were on the way, we've got a $25 million endowment, we've got a good budget, a good grant, we had stability from a financial perspective. Name recognition was still there, we had great expertise, we had 400 coaches per year already working with us, 2,000 alumni for the institution, and we had an amazing team. And this is where I'll point out Elisa again, who started a year before I did. We brought in a new artistic director to the French section, so we have a team that is poised for success. And most importantly for me is that we had something that the world needs. There is an empathy deficit in the world, and we had that ability to build empathy, to build stories that bring people together. We had a 60-year accumulated history of doing that. So there was an opportunity for us to move forward. So our action plan, very quickly, it reaffirms the NTS as a civic institution and declares that theater is a builder of community and empathy. It builds a larger and much, much more diverse community of stakeholders around the school, and it proudly takes ownership of who and what we are. We did this, or we're doing this, really through 2 priorities, and by 2 priorities I mean many, many priorities that I tried to get into 2 slides. But number 1 is investing in incomparable training. This is really having to do with what we do best already. It's the idea of taking that expertise that we have and opening it up a little bit further. So first of all, we've launched a whole set of residency programs for Indigenous artists, for emerging leadership, for emerging designers. We now have about 8 or 9 artistic residents who really were offering an a la carte master's level training program for them. Kim is one of them. I hope having a good time. And we're also trying to support as best we can the incredible vision of our 2 artistic directors. We're trying to go through this transformation and make sure that they have the resources to keep offering the best training in the country. We're developing new courses that explore technology and socially engaged practices, And we're developing a whole slew of ongoing training opportunities. It was really easy for us to imagine, if we're doing professional training, to offer that to some other people in different formats. So master classes, seminars, short courses, that kind of stuff. And most importantly, we're trying to bring the two sections of the school together, the French and the English section together. Find what is interesting about the difference in the cultural approaches that we have living within our school. The second and sort of more out-of-the-box priority for us is to create new pathways to the school. But I'd actually adjust that and say it's actually create new pathways to and from the school. So we have a beautiful second building that's coming up on a major renovation project. That, number one, we needed to revitalize it. It needs to find its civic sort of purpose in the city. It's the oldest operating theater in Canada, and we need to restore it with some kind of artistic vision versus a roadhouse model that it currently uses. We've developed, thanks mainly to Elisa Palmer, new auditioning and practices that encourage greater diversity, and we're building new programs for young people, the general public, and private enterprises to share our expertise. So, I hope I'm still on time. I'm trying to go very quickly here. What we've achieved in 18 months. The most significant, they've changed the order on my slide. I'll just use this. So, in our core programs, we have developed new curriculum, and we're constantly developing new curriculum to make sure we're in line with the needs of the milieu. And incredibly, we have increased the diversity of our candidate pool considerably. In fact, we have increased it by 15%, and some cohorts coming into our class in certain programs are now over 50% culturally diverse, which is a huge step forward for the National Theatre School. I would add that hopefully by the end of our AGM in 2018, our board will also be 40% culturally diverse, 65% female. We have an inaugural cohort of resident artists, which I mentioned, the Artistic Leadership Program, the Indigenous Artists in Residence, the Hooper programs, the Independent Residencies. And we have our pilot youth and adult programs and professional development classes. But most significantly, there's an and. Also, in the past 18 months, we have prepared for the fall launch of the youth, professional, and general public full programs. We're launching the planning process for the new operating model of our facility. We've created new conversations with donors and supporters, and we've reorganized the organization and improved efficiency. But the big step for us was that recently, many of you will be aware, that the Sears Drama Festival, which operates in about 400, 500 schools in British Columbia, Ontario, and the Atlantic provinces, was about to disappear after 71 years of encouraging young people to love theater. And we saw that as an incredible opportunity for us. So we're very happy that in 2 weeks, the NTS Drama Festival will be happening across Ontario, British Columbia, and the Atlantic provinces, and has suddenly, thank you, it has suddenly put us in contact with communities across this country, rural communities with tens of thousands of spectators. We have really now gone from 160 people in our programs to 8,000 participants in the span of about 12 months. So it's a huge adjustment for the organization. We're learning along the way. It's been really exciting. We have obviously are building capacity as quickly as we can, but it's risky for us. We have internal buy-in, but it's really important to maintain that buy-in. The core programs remain at the center of everything that we're doing and must remain at the center, and we need to become more us than ever before. If we're going to spread ourselves out into 500 communities across the country, we need to make sure that the essence of what the National Theatre School is clear and true. So I'll just finish off by letting you know that by this time, when I make this presentation in 2020, possibly announcing my retirement from the performing arts altogether, we're looking to have a national theatre school that is truly national and truly present across this country. We're looking to have 20,000 participants in our programs. The National Theatre School Drama Festival will be running nationally in all provinces, And it will be an opportunity for us to start contributing to curriculum for school boards and creating new relationships with all kinds of communities. We'll have a full season of additional training offers in partnership with other arts organizations, like our partnership with the Banff Centre. And we'll have a significant opportunity to reinvest in the core programs, that difficult financial model, because we have gathered such a large community around what we do and who we are. So that's where we are right now. That's National Theatre School as we go forward. Thank you so much for your time.